One of the reasons that Founders Fridays did so well is that people are hungry for their own history, just like they're now hungry for the Constitution. I mean, look across the nation, Tea Party's popping up, 9/12 groups. Everybody wants to read the Constitution. That's part of history. I mean, we got groups now looking at reading the Federalist Papers. We haven't done that in 100 years. So we're really hungry for our history, and Founders Fridays really filled that void.
You probably know the next founding father as my favorite. Most people will say George Washington is one of the best presidents, but they don't know why. George Washington was truth. To me, the only kind of hope that there is comes from truth. He was, at the time, known as the indispensable man. When George Washington was around, things were a mess, and he was the indispensable man because nobody trusted anybody. All the states were arguing with each other. You couldn't sell anything across the border. The whole thing was falling apart. Here's George Washington, a man who at 16 was out surveying land for his country, which was then Great Britain. All he wanted to do was go to Mount Vernon and be a farmer. His countries, Great Britain and then the United States of America, had him serving for year after year after year after year. After he won the Revolutionary War, he went back to be that farmer in Mount Vernon. In 1791, things started to fall apart, and they came knocking at his door and said, "George, we need you because the whole thing is falling apart." I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was pretty close to, "Have I not yet done enough for my country?" No. I think what I like about George Washington is most of the choices he made, he didn't want to make. Most of the things he did, he didn't want to do. He was revered for it. He was revered. And I think it's because they knew that in the end, he didn't matter to him. It was just doing the right thing. That's what mattered. I made George Washington faith, hope, and charity. I made Washington hope because I was trying to figure out why that Obama hope doesn't work, and because it's false hope. It's not telling you the truth. And I mean, it's ironic to me that we make up a lie about "I shall not tell a lie" on George Washington when there's so many great truth stories with him. Would you say that he's the best example of hope?
Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
You hit the nail right on the head, Glenn. There is no figure in the history of this nation that represents hope as well as George Washington. And just let me give you a couple of reasons why I believe that. One, we've already been talking about. And it is so astonishing to me that we have writers today who say that not only that the founders were deists, but in some cases atheists. Now, George Washington was the most vocal, but virtually all of them said that the reason that this country was created was because of the intervention of God. And nobody said it more often or more effectively than George Washington. But the other thing is this, and if that, by the way, when you consider who these men were and what they accomplished, you know, these were the most brilliant and the most insightful political philosophers and statesmen
In the world.
in one place at one time in the history of the world. And here they're all saying it was God who used us to do this. And you have to ask yourself, were they all wrong?
Was he ever afraid?
Washington, there is no evidence in the record that he feared death. There's no evidence that he feared being injured in battle. What he was afraid of was that he was not up to the task, that he didn't have what America needed to provide the leadership that they were calling on him to provide.
He didn't at first, did he? When he first, I mean, the most surprising thing that I learned about George Washington, we think of him as a great general. He stunk on ice at the beginning for like a year or so. I mean, we lost New York, we lost everything. They were chasing him all around.
He grew into it.
Do you think that somebody like George Washington could be in office today? Neither of you?
Well, you know, you said before we started that people are beginning to wake up. I think that Americans are looking for somebody like George Washington. Here is a man who was unanimously elected as the commander-in-chief of the new American Army, unanimously elected as the presiding officer of the Constitutional Convention, unanimously elected by the Electoral College twice as the President of the United States, didn't want to do any of it. What kind of person is that? But there was something in him. The subtitle on the biography is The Man Who United America. When we started, we were not united. And it's true, Samuel Adams earned the title, the father of the American Revolution. Jefferson even called him the patriarch of liberty. But there was only one man who could have been called the father of our country, and that's George Washington.
Is there any president that in your studies, is there any president that has even come close to the role he played? Right guy, right time. And
I can't point to one.
So we've covered faith and we've covered hope. Next, charity and why Ben Franklin's face. And still to come, life after Founders Fridays.
Hi, I'm Dennis from Long Island. Founders Fridays inspired me to go back and start reading a lot of the books that they've highlighted on the show.
My name is Dustin. I'm from Waterloo, Iowa. And Glenn, I'd like to thank you for doing your Founding Fathers Fridays.